NBA playoffs are finally here, and I am really excited because it's my second favorite sports holiday besides March Madness. So, how's everyone doing today? My name is Jay Red, and today I'm going to be talking about each playoff pairing, seeding pairings, saying who's going to be moving on to the next round, and who's going to eventually go into the championship game and win the NBA championship. And these are all just predictions based on what I know and how each season turned out for each team. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into it. So I'm going to start off on the Western Conference side. We have the Golden State Warriors versus the Portland Trail Blazers. Golden State had a 67-15 record, not quite like the 73-9 record that they had last season, but still that's a pretty good season. And then Portland finished with a 41-41 record, giving them the 8th seed. Portland really surprised me because I really thought they were going to be at least one of the top teams in the Western Conference, especially with C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard. And the addition of Jusuf Nurkic after the trade deadline, that was a pretty good addition to Portland's roster. Watch out for Portland next year. If they can develop into the right team, they're going to be a dangerous team in the Western Conference. That's just my prediction. But for this series, I think Golden State's going to win in 5 games. They've had the better season. Portland, they just really haven't impressed me all that well. I mean, they are a young team and they are only going to get better, but I just don't see Portland winning this. But Damian Lillard says they're going to win in 6 games. It's not impossible, but it is possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. But that is a lot of confidence for Damian Lillard to have on his team. So Golden State's moving on to the next round. Then we have the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, they're one of the most underrated teams in the NBA right now. In Los Angeles, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, like Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. They both went down with injuries. Now they're back. I think Utah, they are a great young team with Gordon Hayward and Rudy Gobert. I think they are going to get better as the years pass. They also have Derek Favors as their power forward. I think they are going to be really tough in the Western Conference coming into the future, just like the Portland Trail Blazers. And I think Utah is going to beat Los Angeles. But the only reason I say that is because Rudy Gobert, he's a defensive center. He can block shots. He's one of the top defenders in the NBA right now. And I think he's going to outdo DeAndre Jordan when it comes down to it. That's just my personal opinion. I think Utah is going to go on and face Golden State in the next round. Next matchup, Houston versus Oklahoma City. The two candidates for the MVP, James Harden versus Russell Westbrook. The matchup we've all been seeing, and it's now in the NBA playoffs. I think Houston's going to move on to the next round. They're going to beat Oklahoma City because James Harden, he's got so many players around him like Patrick Beverley, Trevor Ariza, Ryan Anderson, Clint Capella, Eric Gordon, Sam Dekker, Montrezl Harrell. I mean, the list goes on and on for how many role players they have on that Houston team, and it's all led by James Harden. And he led that team, a subpar team at best, that probably would have gone the 6th seed or the 4th and 5th seed to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference under Mike D'Antoni's system. That's pretty impressive by James Harden. So I think Houston's going to move on to the next round and beat Oklahoma City. Next matchup, San Antonio and Memphis. San Antonio had a 61-21 record, and then Memphis had a 43-39 record. Memphis, they really shocked me this season. I really thought they were going to still have that defensive presence with Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph, but Zach Randolph, he's getting up there in age. Marc Gasol, his production's probably going to go down low in the next few years. Mike Conley, he's got the biggest contract in the NBA right now. They got Tony Allen, who is a defensive presence, and then they have Vince Carter, along with some other players on that Memphis team. Basically, they are a defensive team overall. And it kind of shocked me that they're only 43-39. But I think San Antonio is going to move on to the next round. I don't think there's going to be another Memphis upset over San Antonio. San Antonio is just too good with Kawhi Leonard, with Marcus Aldridge, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. And Danny Green, they still got those players on that team. San Antonio is just too good with depth. They also got Jonathan Simmons, who's going to be a really good player for the San Antonio Spurs in the future under Greg Popovich's system. So I think San Antonio is going to move on to the next round in 4 games. I think they're going to sweep Memphis. I just don't see Memphis winning a game. Moving on to the Eastern Conference side, we have the Boston Celtics as the number 1 seed, over Cleveland against the number 8 seed Chicago Bulls. The Bulls finished with a 41-41 record, and Boston finished with a 53-29 record. What can I say about Chicago? They got rid of their shooting. That's what killed them. The only shooting that they have is Jimmy Butler. Yes, Dwayne Wade, he's a better three-point shooter than he was when he was in Miami, but Chicago's development as a shooting team has not progressed. Rajon Rondo, he can't hit the three-point shot. Dwayne Wade, he can hit the three-point shot now, but it's still not enough. Jimmy Butler, he's basically their only main shooter. I mean, they have Nikolai Mirotic, but he's not like all-star caliber level. Robin Lopez, he's a good rebounder, he's a good defender, but he's not like all-star center level. I mean, Chicago, they're a decent team at best, but they're not top quality yet. If Chicago can make some right assets in the offseason, they could make for a good team if they make the right moves. But I just don't see them beating Boston, because Boston, they have Isaiah Thomas, Al Horford, Amir Johnson, Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley. That's a good starting lineup, and I think Boston's going to move on because of Isaiah Thomas's work ethic. Don't count out Isaiah Thomas because he is a beast. Washington and Atlanta. Now, Washington, if you guys have not seen them, they've turned everything around. John Wall being the leader of the team, along with Bradley Beal, who's been stepping up. It looks like John Wall and Bradley Beal are two forces of nature that cannot be stopped, because Bradley Beal, he has stepped up recently. Not being injured, he's been putting up good numbers. I think Washington's going to beat Atlanta. Atlanta, they have a good young prospect in Dennis Schroeder, and they also have guys like Paul Millsap and Dwight Howard, but I just don't see Atlanta beating Washington with the hot run that Washington's been on. Washington has just been unstoppable with John Wall's play and just the teamwork that they've been working around. It's just been impressive. Next matchup, Toronto and Milwaukee. Milwaukee's really surprised me because I thought with the full development of Giannis Antetokounmpo, with the addition of Matthew Dellavedova, who else is on that roster? I can't think of anybody. Oh, wait, Chris Middleton. I think Milwaukee is going to upset Toronto. Now, Toronto, if you guys have not seen their play, they haven't been playing great recently, especially Kyle Lowry. DeMar DeRozan, he's been pretty good. Jonas Valanciunas, he's not been doing that great. Toronto, they just haven't been playing great recently. And Milwaukee, they are on a 42-40 record, but I think they're going to pull off the upset because Giannis, he's a beast. I think he's going to step up in the playoffs, and I think Milwaukee's going to upset them. Next matchup, Cleveland versus the Indiana Pacers. I'm not going to say anything else. Cleveland's going to move on most likely, but thing is, Cleveland, they haven't been playing great recently. If you guys have seen the play, it has been atrocious, but Indiana has not been playing great either. It's going to be a sloppy series between these two, but I think Cleveland's going to move on in 6 games. Give it or take. All right, going into the Western Conference semis, Golden State versus Utah Jazz. I have Golden State going on to the Western Conference Finals only because they got the experience with Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. They got the experience there. I think they're going to move on. Utah, like I said, great young team. Probably going to be a force of nature in the Western Conference in a few years. It's not Utah's time yet. Give it a few years. It'll be Utah's time in the near future. But Golden State's going to move on to the next round. Houston versus San Antonio. My personal opinion, I think Houston's going to move on to the next round. Houston, they have that leadership with James Harden and making his teammates better. Yes, the San Antonio Spurs, they have a lot of experience with some of the guys on their roster, but you can't stop James Harden once he gets hot. You can't. And you can't stop his teammates either once they get hot. Houston's just unstoppable. So I think Houston's going to move on to the Western Conference Finals to face Golden State. Going on to the next round, Boston versus Washington. And this is where the inexperience kicks in for Washington. They haven't been to the playoff. They haven't had much playoff appearances. They don't have much playoff wins. Boston, you know how they are. They don't have that much experience either with Isaiah Thomas and Al Horford being the true key franchise players. But Boston, they do have playoff experience. And I think Boston's going to move on to the next round because Isaiah Thomas is going to probably step up huge. Al Horford's going to step up huge too. Cleveland versus Milwaukee. I think Cleveland's going to move on to the next round in 7 games. 7 games. I'm going to say that because, like I said, Cleveland has not been playing great recently, and I just feel like Cleveland is just going to have close games to where it comes down to the game deciding factor. And I think Cleveland's going to beat Milwaukee in 7 games. Going on to the Western Conference Finals, we have Golden State versus Houston. I picked Golden State and going back to the NBA Finals for a 3rd straight year in a row because, like I said, they have the experience. James Harden, he's got a great team of guys that are getting better each and every day. Once they develop into like great players, Houston could be a really good team in the future. But it's not Houston's time to go to the NBA Finals yet. Golden State's going to go back to another 3rd year. They're just too good. Then we have Boston versus Cleveland. I choose Boston. Here's why. Boston, they've been playing amazing under Isaiah Thomas and the rest of their players. Cleveland, they've been struggling with the addition of Larry Sanders, and they've been having some injury problems as well and been resting their players. But I just really think that Boston is going to end up going to the finals and preventing us from having another Cleveland and Golden State Warrior matchup in the finals once again. So in the NBA Finals, we have Golden State versus the Boston Celtics. Now, Isaiah Thomas, if this is going to happen, this will be his first ever NBA Finals appearance. Same thing for Al Horford. I don't think Boston's going to win. Just the inexperience with those guys on the team right now. It's gonna go so far. I think Golden State's gonna win another championship because with the addition of Kevin Durant, they're just gonna be unstoppable in the playoffs. I don't see anybody beating Golden State in the NBA Finals or on the western side of the bracket. I think Golden State's gonna win the whole thing. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. Once they get hot, they're just hot with role players like Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia, Matt Barnes on the team, David West, a young player in Patrick McCall. I mean, there's just so many players on that team that could provide for the Golden State Warriors, and I just don't see anybody beating them. So anyways, guys, that is my NBA playoff predictions. They start tomorrow. I'm excited for the start of the NBA playoffs. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to try to get as many videos as possible. And then during the time of the NBA playoffs, there's going to be some NBA draft talks. NBA draft lotteries coming up next month. I'm going to be making a video on that. I'm also going to talk about some prospects that are going to be coming into the draft. For example, Markelle Fultz, De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Bam Adebayo, and Justin Jackson, maybe Josh Jackson, and some other players that are going into the NBA. Lonzo Ball, I'm going to probably talk about that. And I'm also going to talk about the Boston Celtics number 1 and the first round pick. If they're going to draft somebody at that spot and then trade them for somebody that they need, I'll talk about that in the near future. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think that Golden State's going to win another NBA Finals? What are your guys' predictions for the NBA playoffs as well? Let me know down in the comment section below. I want to hear your guys' thoughts and feelings on that. So, as always, guys, have an awesome day, and I will see you all later.